Let's make sure it comes up before you actually start talking.
I'm waiting for Paul to give me the heads up.
Go.
Welcome to the inaugural virtual meeting of the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge. It's a pleasure for us to be with you today. We are excited to be transmitting. Are we good?
It's live.
Okay. Hope everyone is doing well with the virus, the COVID-19 that we're all dealing with. Some of us have been very busy. A lot of us have been staying at home. Some of whom may have not even gotten dressed recently, but this is an opportunity for you to join us and for us to connect with you as your Rotary Club. So to get us started, I'm going to just take a moment and offer a prayer for all of us and what we're going through right now. Heavenly Father, we appreciate your guidance. We appreciate your support as we all deal with this virus and the implications. We're so appreciative for our members that were infected with the virus, that have gone through the process and survived and come back even stronger. We pray for those who are affected. We pray for those on the front line, the healthcare workers, the grocery workers, the food bank, the first responders all across the area who are putting their lives at risk for the benefit of the others, those who need us, those who look to us in these times. And we appreciate the opportunity to look to you as we move forward with this response, and we come out being better for what we are and better for what we've been through as we move to continue our efforts to heal our country, heal us all, and bring us back to who we are as a nation, who we are as a people, and who we are as a compassionate, caring community that takes care of one another. In your name we pray. Okay, I'm going to invite Haggai to lead us in the pledge, since Haggai is with us today.
It's coming inside. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I want to bring you an update on where we are with things at the Rotary Club, and you should all be aware of this already. You are not going to be billed for meals during the COVID-19 quarantine. So it's going to be a situation where, there's not going to be that in your bill. The other thing I want to make you aware of is, obviously, we're not going to have in-person meetings until we're allowed to. So we hope to continue to have these virtual meetings to give you the opportunity to still stay connected with us, with a focus on making sure that we have the best speakers for you to talk about current topics and other things that are really of interest to the club, that we have traditionally seen as being great speakers for our group. One of the other things I want to make you aware of is the executive committee, without me being included because of my direct involvement. At the request of District 6200, the executive committee approved a $2,500 donation to the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank. And as well, you can understand, I would not have been involved in that conversation. When it came up from District 6200, I handed it off to the executive committee to handle, because I shouldn't have been involved in that at all. And that was their decision based on the recommendation of District 6200 and our Assistant District Governor, Sam Herbert. So that's where we are. We are going to continue being the Rotary Club of Baton Rouge. We're not going anywhere. We're just taking a little vacation, a little hiatus. And once we get through the virus and we shake out the kinks on these virtual meetings, you'll see us do more and more of these, just so we can remain connected. We're also going to create a YouTube channel where these will be posted, so that you can go back if you missed it. You can share it with someone and make sure they're aware that we're still meeting and we are trying to make a difference, as we always do as the Rotary Club, because we are very important to Baton Rouge. We're going to be very important as we come to the recovery from COVID-19, and we try to strive to reassess what the community needs and what our impact can be in light of the new situation, the new normal that we're going to be facing as we slowly recover and begin to restart the economy after this COVID-19 impact. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Haggai, who will introduce our speaker, and hopefully we'll be able to free the speaker up in just a minute to join us and communicate with you.
Hi, everybody. So Congressman Graves, he represents Louisiana's 6th district, as you all know. More than 750,000 people across 13 parishes, and which includes obviously Baton Rouge and the bulk of the greater Baton Rouge area, all the way both sides of the Mississippi River, over Pontchartrain, down through Houma and Thibodaux as well. For the 116th Congress, Garrett is the ranking member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee on Aviation and is the ranking member of the new Select Committee on Climate Crisis. He also serves on the House Natural Reserves. Last Congress, he was the chair of the Subcommittee on Water Resources and Environment and was instrumental in the development of passage of enactment and of a range of policy wins on rivers, levees, flood protection, and coastal issues, and helping with the Corps of Engineer reforms. So with that being said, I give you our Congressman, Garrett Graves.
Yay! All right. Well, hey, good afternoon. I hope that everyone is doing well, staying safe, and staying healthy. Great to have the opportunity to join you, although I really do hate that it's under these strange circumstances. First of all, look, I know the thing that's on everyone's minds is what's going on with coronavirus, and certainly we're in extraordinary times right now, but Louisiana's no stranger to disaster. We've been through these types of disasters, or been through many disasters in our history. We have become very adaptable, very resilient, very innovative, and I think you're seeing some of that happening in Louisiana right now. But look, this is very, very serious. To think that just even a few months ago we weren't aware, this was not really on our radar, that this whole debacle, this whole pandemic could occur or was occurring is really frightening. And then to look at where we are right now, having the latest numbers in Louisiana with 21,951 cases in the state of Louisiana, having over 1,100 deaths in our state, and right here in Baton Rouge, as of the numbers today, 1,325 cases in East Baton Rouge Parish, with 62 deaths in this parish, is really just extraordinary. But we have been able to step in Congress and help to provide some assistance. So far, we've done 3 different pieces of legislation to try and provide some help or some assistance. The first bill that we did largely provided funds for testing, provided funds for different types of treatment options, vaccines and cures. It also provided some funds to the Centers for Disease Control and the National Institutes of Health, and provided some funds to our state public health agencies. The second bill, among other things, one of the big components of it was ensuring that the cost share to have a test for coronavirus, whether you're on TRICARE in the military, you're a veteran and getting VA health care, you're on Medicaid, you're on Medicare, or even your own private insurance option, that you would not be forced to pay a co-payment or a cost share on that coronavirus test, therefore eliminating any type of economic obstacle or hurdle to getting that assistance, to getting that diagnosis. The other thing that the bill did is it said that if you are on family leave, family medical leave, if you're on sick leave, and that could be because you're quarantined, it could be because you have a family member that's quarantined, you have a child out of school, any of those scenarios, you would have the ability to stay home, and the federal government would provide a tax credit to your employer in order to continue paying your salary, so that would not cause economic harm to that business. And so that was the second bill. The third bill that we did, the one known as the CARES Act, is really the big one that became law on March 27th. And it has a number of different components in it, but I'll run through some of the ones that you are probably most interested in. The first one is this economic impact payment, this relief payment from the IRS, providing up to $1,200 for every adult, providing up to $500 for every dependent child. And so those payments actually started going out on Monday, and the Treasury projects that by the end of this week, they'll have as many as 80 million payments out the door. So really just extraordinary progress to think that this just became law on March 27th, and here we are 2-3 weeks later, and you're already seeing the dollars rolling out the door for a federal bureaucracy. This is really just extraordinary efficiency coming out of them, which is great. For those of you that are non-filers, you don't file taxes, not because you're doing something illegal, but because you don't meet income thresholds, you're a retiree. You can go to the irs.gov website, and right over on the left side near the top, there's a non-filers bar you can click, and you can update any information you have there to ensure that your payment comes as quickly as possible directly to your bank account. There was a new tool or new app that was just released today by the IRS. It's a Get My Payment tool, and you can go there, you can check the status of your payments, you can update your information. You will likely need your 2018 or 2019 tax return, but it will give you live updates on where things are with your payment, when you can expect that to come in, to help to provide some economic relief to you and your family. So I'll say it again, up to $1,200 per adult, up to $500 per dependent child. Moving on to the next one. There is expanded unemployment insurance. So those of you that lose your jobs, there is normally the state of Louisiana can provide somewhere up to about $247 a week in assistance to you. However, we expand unemployment in the CARES Act that's now law today by doing a few things. Number one, waiving what is normally a 7-day waiting period. We eliminate that. Secondly, expanding eligibility to those that are self-employed, contract workers, 1099 employees. Those folks are all now eligible to get unemployment assistance. We have expanded it to former workers, laid off workers of state government, of local government, of not-for-profits as well, and have added a $600 a week supplement to add to what is available already under state unemployment insurance assistance. So that's available, and it will go back until March 23rd. It'll retroactive to March 23rd. It expands the program for an additional 13 weeks for a total of 25 weeks of assistance. So that's the second program, and that one has overwhelmed the Louisiana Workforce Commission, but they are working now, updating their software, their online systems, and have been catching up, and I know that some payments have been made already. So that's the second big program in the bill. The third one, and probably the one that's most popular, is one called the Paycheck Protection Program. Paycheck Protection Program. What that one does is it sets aside $350 nearly billion to provide loans directly to small businesses, to those that are self-employed. These loans are forgivable. And so what it would do is it would actually allow you to go in to calculate your payroll from 2019 or during the last 12 months and get your monthly payroll average. That can include things like bonuses, commissions, tips, and other things. You can add all that up. It includes the benefits such as healthcare and retirement costs, and you get your monthly average, you multiply it times 2.5, and that is what you're eligible for. And that loan, as long as you spend 75%, at least 75% of it, on payroll for your employees and yourself, that loan can be forgiven. If the remaining 25% or less is spent on rent, utilities, and mortgage interest, the entire loan is forgivable. We have, as of Monday evening, the 13th, we have had well over, it was a total of 17,097 loans that had been processed in the state of Louisiana, totaling $3.745 billion in those loans, averaging somewhere around $220,000 per business in the state of Louisiana. I remind you, Any small business is eligible for this. You can be self-employed, you can be a 1099 contract worker, gig economy type worker, any of you, an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, any of them are eligible. All sorts of information online. If you go to treasury.gov, there's a red bar across the top. You click on it. They have frequently asked questions that are updated, interim guidance. There's a 16-page document, a 19-page document, a 31-page document, or the frequently asked questions that has somewhere around 26 questions answered that was just updated this week. All of those providing information. Last thing on this one, we have found that our smaller banks seem to be processing these much faster. Our smaller lenders, our credit unions, banks, and other lending institutions. We've found that some of the larger banks, like Capital One, for example, are not processing the loans at all, and very frustrating. But I just want to urge you, check with some of your different banks that you have relationships with if you're interested in this loan. Over 70% of the funds have already been committed from the program, and so I would urge you to try to move very quickly. We are trying to replenish another $250 billion into the program as soon as this week. Now, lastly, in this legislation, there are a number of cats and dogs that are in there. There's everything from a disaster loan program called the EIDL. There is flexibility for you to go back 5 years and get carryback losses on your taxes for 2018, 19, and 20 and pull those forward and liquidate that. There are provisions that allow you a $5,000 per employee retention tax credit. It's 50 cents on the dollar. There are more flexibility for your healthcare and flexible spending account. And lastly, there is a provision that allows you to defer your payroll taxes for up to 1 year and then have 2 years to take it back, to pay it back. So all sorts of provisions in there. But with that, I assume that most of y'all are interested in what's going on with coronavirus. So just want to give you an update on those three bills. I expect that we will replenish the Paycheck Protection Program in coming days, and I expect that we will do probably a fifth long-term recovery bill related to coronavirus. So with that, I want to thank all y'all very much for joining us, and I'm going to go through and start answering some of y'all's questions that are here. So a lot of y'all are just checking in, and I want to again thank you very much for being on. And need a refresher.
Okay.
All right, we're going to do a little. Here we go. Okay. All right. So let's see. Going to start going through some of your questions. All right. So first of all, let's see. A lot of folks checking in.
One of the questions is about 17 to 24-year-olds.
Okay. All right. So 17 to 24-year-olds. So one of the questions that's come up is if you have a child that's between 17 and 24 years old, what's happened is that under the law, and you can either go quick or you can get it perfect. Under the law, they made reference to a provision of the 86 tax code that defines dependents, and it defines dependents basically 16 and younger during the tax year. And so in that case, those that are 17 up to 24 years old, they are not eligible for a dependent payment of $500 if they're a dependent. But they do have the option of potentially filing the taxes for themselves and being eligible for a $1,200 payment, provided that they are not also filed as a dependent by the parents. So there is a gap in there in current law for those that are between 17 and 24, but that's how that provision is working right now. It would be a 16-year-old or younger during the tax year. Those are eligible for assistance or for the $500 payment. So let's see. All right, so Wade is concerned about voter fraud, and yeah, so Wade, what you're probably making reference to as we speak right now, the Secretary of State is testifying before the Senate Government Affairs Committee and the state legislature about trying to adapt a voting or ballot process to this coronavirus pandemic and trying to provide some more flexibility for absentee ballots. It is a very controversial issue right now, though, because you have seen nationally how by reducing the threshold or the certification or validity or authenticity of who you are, we've seen increase in voter fraud in some areas, so there's a sensitivity there, and I know that many folks want to, in fact everyone, no one wants us to have voter fraud, so folks are trying to make sure that appropriate protections are in place for that. So that's been a hot topic, and I'll say it again, our Secretary of State is testifying right now before the Senate Government Affairs Committee on this topic. Let's see, in Lee asked about 17, 24-year-olds. Let's see, Laura, Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie, let's see. Can you address some of the additional guidance that came out yesterday about the PPP and what sole proprietors need to do to apply? Yeah, so what Stephanie's talking about is that just yesterday, I think that was the 19 pages of guidance, as I recall, that the Treasury released in conjunction with the Small Business Administration. It in addition to a number of other things, it provided more clarity on the process that sole proprietors follow in terms of calculating what their income is. It provided more clarity on the process for forgiveness of the loans, and so you can go to treasury.gov, and again, that red bar, you can click on it, and they have it's one of the affiliation rule interim guidance documents, as I recall, but it was just released yesterday, and it does go through and answer a number of questions, provides pretty good data on the process by which sole proprietors can get access to the Paycheck Protection Program. It also provides information, again, on the terms for forgiving loans and things along those lines. If any of you have trouble accessing that information, please feel free to call our office, and we definitely will connect you with it. Stuart, you bet, thanks very much. Laura, what are your thoughts on how to get Louisiana and America back to work? Look, here's the reality. The reality is that, as I said in the opening, we've never been through this before. We are well practiced, well versed with hurricanes and floods, and unfortunately have even been through oil spills. This is a new one for us. There are some lessons learned from the old ones, from the other types of disasters we've had, but in regard to this one, in the few months we've been doing this, we recognize that social distancing does help. We recognize that not shaking hands and giving people hugs, we recognize that better hygiene and washing our hands and not touching our faces. And many studies indicate that even things like masks are helpful. Now, I'll bring up another one, some of the studies that I've recently read that they say that heat and humidity actually reduce transmission rates. So here we are in Louisiana, actually really excited about summer coming for maybe an unlikely reason. We're going to celebrate our heat and humidity here. And so what we need to do to open the economy. Look, we are seeing, as I read the numbers off today, we're seeing that increase begin to flatten in Louisiana. We're seeing it begin to flatten in Baton Rouge. And so what that means is that the things that we've been doing are working. Again, the social distancing, the things like we're doing right now, adapting to a Facebook Live as opposed to doing our live meeting at Drusilla. And so how do we continue applying these lessons learned, these practices, doing more Zoom meetings and other virtual mechanisms? How can we integrate social distancing into restaurants, having tables spread a little bit further apart, having hand sanitizer available at the door? How do you incorporate some of these lessons learned, some of these protective measures into resuming our economy and opening things back up again? How do we do a better job getting more testing out there, including testing for the antibodies, identifying those people that have actually been through the virus and have developed antibodies and maybe were asymptomatic and do not even realize they ever were actually positive for the virus? And that way you know who to protect, how to protect them, and how to incorporate some of these measures into our economy reopening. Now, last thing on this that I think is important. Look, you're going to have a very different scenario on when that happens and what it looks like in a place that's densely populated like New York City as compared to perhaps Tensas and Cameron Parish that as of yesterday had one case each, a more sparsely populated area. And so I do think that you're going to have to really tailor the openings back up to the actual communities that you're talking about. But I'll say it again, here I think that we are on the cusp of being able to do it. We've just got to do it in an informed manner and in a principled manner that really responds to the lessons learned that we've had over the past several weeks. So let's see. Judith, thank you very much. And Kenya and Jada. Marvin, why was money given to the Kennedy Center? And so Marvin, what was going on there is that these were negotiations that were going on, and the third bill, that CARES bill, ended up taking longer than it should have to negotiate and actually enact. It's remarkable what's happened since then, but I'll say it again, that bill ended up being delayed for a number of days more than it should have. We could have been perhaps 4 days ahead of where we are today if the bill had stayed on track. There was a negotiation that happened. The negotiations became a partisan fight, and basically you had people that were demanding money for National Endowment for Humanities, National Endowment for the Arts, set-asides for particular colleges and universities in Washington, D.C., as opposed to letting them compete or participate in the other national program for our schools and colleges across the country. There were efforts to try and put renewable tax credits in there to spend $1 billion on old airplanes. I mean, just all kinds of things that were completely irrelevant to what we're talking about right now. There was actually $25 billion in transit funds whenever we're telling people to social distance, but they're trying to put $25 billion in the transit program. So there were a number of things that got very controversial. Bottom line is that well over 90% of those items were kept out of. They were kept out of the final bill. But at the end of the day, there were a number of things, many of which I never supported, would vote for, but I had to look at the whole bill in balance, and ultimately it was 847 pages, if I remember right, the actual text of the amendment, and had to look at it on balance. The Kennedy Center was given $25 million. That was less than what they initially had asked for. The Kennedy Center, the very next day, fired their staff or laid everyone off. So it was pretty frustrating. I'll say it again. There were a number of things in there that were just junk, that were things that I do not support. I think that was extraneous or not relevant to coronavirus. And that certainly was one of them. And I think the fact that they went the next day and laid staff off really poured salt in the wound of that one. But we did try and strike it. In fact, I've even gone back and have a letter that has asked that all of the superfluous or irrelevant things be rescinded, and that money be then reprogrammed back into the assistance programs for small businesses, including the EIDL and PPP loans. Let's see. Deborah, hey, thanks for being on. You say you applied for the EIDL loan on April 3rd, and no word yet except that there was a receipt. So here you go. I'm going to jump into the weeds a little bit, Deborah. You have the EIDL loan, which is the disaster loan, and then the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. The EIDL loan is supposed to be a term of 30 years, supposed to be a cap of $2 million, and an interest rate of 3.75% for businesses, 2.75% for not-for-profits. Unfortunately, what happened is that program, similar to the Paycheck Protection Program, was oversubscribed. The difference between the two is that the PPP program was run by banks and the EIDL was run by the Small Business Administration. Small Business Administration was completely overwhelmed. Very different than the PPP that has 4,600 lenders approved right now administering this program. And so SBA was completely overwhelmed. They went from expecting, Deborah, to have a few days to approve the loans of up to $2 million to now taking weeks and reducing the maximum loan amount of perhaps to as low as $25,000. And so it is, I will tell you, it is a debacle. This one has not been handled well at all. And we are working to try to see if we can replenish the funds for the EIDL to allow for the loan amounts to be much greater than as low as 15 or 25,000, and also to see if we can find a way to administer these loans much faster than we're seeing right now. So I apologize, Deborah, that you're having problems, but this is a problem across the board. The good news, Deborah, is that EIDL did make their first loan payment approval and payment on Monday of this week. So things are moving. It's just been very slowly. Lisa, the Office of Motor Vehicles seems to be completely shut down. No one answering phones. Tag agents unable to do anything because of COVID. Shut down the systems. Any advice or information on when they might be available? Lisa, I don't, but if you don't mind, Lisa, if you can give our office a call, we will track that down with the state today. The phone number is 225-442-1731. It's Lisa Stansberry.
Yep, I'm gonna play.
Okay, so we're gonna tag you on this one as well. But if feel free to give us a call, but we'll also try and reach out to you on Facebook. Hey Stevie, thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words, and I hope that you and the family are doing well. I actually spoke to your father last week, so thanks for being on. Let's see. So you're saying, will there be protection for businesses that try to hire and reopen to keep them from getting swamped with lawsuits, manually suits that include gross negligence? Stevie, that's actually a really, really good question. And as a matter of fact, we have draft legislation to do just that. I'd be happy to share it with you. In some of the research that we've done, though, it appears that there may be some underlying laws that help to provide that appropriate protection. But about 3 weeks ago, this was a concern that we had identified, and we did begin drafting legislation that would do just that. And of course, as you noted, it does have a gross negligence exemption. Certainly, I think that people should be protected for doing what they think is right, but if someone carries out gross negligence or willful misconduct, that of course would be an entirely different category. So I'll reach out to you and love to share with you the legislation and some of the research that we found so far. Sarah, are self-employed persons eligible for the $600 federal unemployment benefit? Louisiana Workforce Commission is telling our clients they're not eligible and denying benefits. That is not correct, meaning that the response that they're getting from the Workforce Commission is not correct. Yes, self-employed folks are eligible for the $600 a week supplement. Here's what's going on, I believe. The Workforce Commission had their software and basically had their criteria from the old system that was being applied to new applications. And so they had to wait on guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor to update the criteria that their system would basically evaluate applicants by. And they did receive that criteria. They did update their system. So what I would urge your clients or associates to do would be to reapply. And they should, under the new criteria, under the new system, they should be eligible because, as I mentioned earlier, unemployment assistance has been expanded to include former employees of not-for-profits, those that are self-employed, 1099 workers, independent contractors, and local and state government employees. So it does include the category or class of folks that you identified. And please, any of you, feel free to reach out to our office if we could be helpful in addressing some of these problems that you've run into. And I'll give you the number again. It's here in Baton Rouge. It's 225-442-1731. All right, let's see. John. Hey, John, you bet. And thanks for being on. David, has FEMA liberated food reserves to supply food bank throughout the country? All right, David. So we got some good news on that one. As a matter of fact, I got Mike Manning standing right here looking at me. And thankfully he's got a smile on his face right now, which earlier last week it probably wouldn't be that smile. But what happened is we actually changed the law in 2018 as a result of some of the feedback from Mike and many others that were working really hard in our 2016 flood to help provide assistance and feed our community, those folks that needed it most. And so we changed the law in October of 2018 to allow for food banks to be eligible to actually receive funding or commodities and then distribute those to the community. And so that approval, so we we were really excited whenever it became law back in October of 18, but unfortunately, up until just recently, FEMA was refusing to actually execute or apply that law. We did send them a letter, it was last week, sorry, and I got a little blame on myself. The letter was sitting on my desk for a couple of days. I apologize, Paul. But we got that letter out last week after a number of conversations with FEMA and with the state of Louisiana. They have agreed to, FEMA has agreed to effectively execute the provision. They are offering funding to our food banks so they can step in and help to provide food to our community members that are most in need. And I was over at the food bank, I think that was last week, I think it was the food bank last week, and it was amazing the amount of boxes that they had ready for distribution, but they made clear to me that those would all be distributed within days, leaving their warehouses in great need of food. So we're really excited this timing seems to have worked out. It is going to allow for this to be considered an emergency measure where FEMA can reimburse the food bank for cost or reimburse the state for effectively triggering the food bank to go out and provide assistance to those community members that are most in need, David. So thanks for asking, and we're really excited that this provision is going to get triggered here in this disaster, because we think that it's going to result in greater efficiency because of the skills of the food bank and their experience in doing just this. So Chris, look at that. Dr. Delia, I hope you're doing well. The speaker's not planning to call the House into session on May 6th, but the fund will run out before then. Is there a chance that she'll reconsider the May 6th date? Yeah, Chris, so Dr. Delia, here's what's going on. You are correct that, as I mentioned earlier, as of Monday evening, over 70% of the Paycheck Protection Program dollars were exhausted or committed. So 70% of that $349 billion. So it, let's see, it was 1.1 million loans through 4,800 lenders that total $270 billion. And the burn rate as of yesterday was approximately $2 billion per hour in loan approvals going through. So, I mean, really just extraordinary rates. So you are correct. Your math is exactly right, as you would anticipate from a professor. But here's what's going on. We are working right now to try to negotiate what's known as a unanimous consent agreement. A unanimous consent agreement, whereby it would only take a minimum of 2 people on the House and Senate floor to actually pass a bill. And so as long as, what will happen is they will poll all of us members of Congress in the House and the Senate, and as long as no one objects, or if no one requires a recorded vote, then we will just do it effectively by a voice vote. And it will not require all of us going back to Washington, which, as you indicated, in that first week of May is what the Speaker has said will be the recall date as of now to bring us back to Washington. So it will be done before that first week of May. If we can finish these negotiations remotely, it will be happening in coming days before the Paycheck Protection Program runs out of money. So. So there's the answer there, and that's how we're going to be able to do this without having to go back, actually fly back into Washington and have a formal session. It'll be more of a pro forma session. Hey, can I ask a quick favor of y'all? You can go, I think it's either down there or over there, and hit share just to connect us with other Rotarians. We would really appreciate it if you could do that. So again, I think the share button's, or is it over there? Is it over there, over there? Wherever, there's a share button. If you can hit one of the share buttons, I would really appreciate it. What am I doing? Everywhere. But if you can hit those share buttons, it just helps us connect with other Rotarians, and we would appreciate that, because there's so many people that obviously would normally come to the meeting, and this whole virtual situation is something that many people may not be aware of. So thanks for doing that. Let's see, where are we next? So the comments actually fade out after I look back up, so I'm going to scroll back to the right spot. Okay, here we are. So Shard, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate that encouragement very much. That was very kind of you. Jeff, do you think our elections this year will be impacted or delayed? And delayed conventions. Jeff, Do I think elections will be impacted? Yes, I think that as we've seen, virtually everything is impacted, and I think that we're going to have to adapt to this situation. And so, could that adaptation be as simple as if you go vote, you've got to keep 6 feet between you and the next person? The voting booths are a little bit more spread apart. That might be it. There could be hand sanitizer. They could ask you to wear something over your face, or it could be much more drastic than that. And I think that once again, we've got to let the numbers inform the decisions. And so as you increase testing, as you begin seeing trends and curves and numbers, you've got to let those things inform the decisions that you make, how and when you open the economy, how you reintegrate people into different scenarios where you may have close contact like that. But I think that absolutely it's going to impact and influence the elections, but we're just going to have to wait and see a little bit longer. Are we able to produce protective equipment much faster? Are we able to produce test and antibody kits much faster to where you can identify those that are positive, those that are have immunity, and things like that to help determine where basically people can go and how they need to interact with others. Let's see. Okay, then Troy, thank you, Troy. Robert, what are you doing for yourself to maintain your mental and physical health during this crisis? Can you share any personal tips or tricks that you have? Hey, Robert.
Facebook Live.
Yeah, so what I do for exercise is Facebook Live. And what we did, like a 2-hour one the other day, I did a 4-hour telephone town hall, 4 hours, which I really can't believe that happened. It was just zoomed by. But so I do that for exercise. I like to go run the lakes. Have a great pull-up bar at the house that I mounted and I can tie it to a truck and it's not going anywhere. And so I play around on the pull-up bar. The kids, and my wife has converted to yoga videos. And the kids, even our 10-year-old, does a daily fitness routine with different online video instructors. And so all sorts of options there for you. And then for mental fitness, I just say that I think I'm going south on that one. So, all right.
When you jog the river, you like there.
So that's right. That was a good incorporation. So also, Robert, whenever I go running, sometimes I'll go run or bike on the levee, and I get to go past by the Rotary statue there. But I'm sure other people have some really good tips here. Let's see. Missy, if a business receives a PPP loan, does this preclude them from applying and receiving a state loan for $100,000? Assuming they have less than 100 employees, or can they receive both loans? Okay, so the PPP loan and the state loan are entirely separate. You can receive a PPP loan and an EIDL loan, which are both federal. You can receive a PPP loan and a state loan, an EIDL loan and a state loan. So none of these are exclusive. You can receive any of them and all of them. You can receive the economic relief payment, the economic impact payment from the IRS, and the loans, and all 3 loans. You can receive potentially even unemployment and the 3 loans and the economic relief payment, provided on that one that you don't have unemployment assistance and the paycheck protection program going on at the same time, because you'd be getting paid for unemployment while you're also getting actually a payroll check from the PPP loan program. So as long as you're not doing them on top of each other, you can do unemployment and PPP as well. But basically you can do any of those things at the same time. Just make sure you're not double recovering or double paying yourself, because that would cause you to potentially have to go through some unfortunate legal consequences. Let's see. I apologize. Like I said, every time I got to go back and find where it was again. Okay, Lane. The SBA guidance says that a PPP loan has to be closed within 10 days of SBA approval. However, some banks are having a hard time meeting that deadline. Are you hearing of any adjustments to this rule? Lane, it's a really good point. So once you get approval from the SBA, there's supposed to be 10 days to close the loan and actually make the first draw. and there was confusion whether that was business days or calendar days. We did have a conference call with SBA and Treasury officials recently, and a conference call with Treasury Secretary yesterday morning, talking through some of this. We are asking for more flexibility on the 10 days. They did effectively say, and I know you can't necessarily hang a hat on this, you bankers out there or lenders out there, but they did say that they recognized that there were some challenges, and they effectively said something along the lines about exercising much discretion on enforcement. We have asked them, though, to actually provide more flexibility there on the 10 days. We have also asked them to provide more flexibility on the 8 weeks because, for example, let's say that you had a restaurant that went ahead and applied, or a hairdresser or hair salon owner, for example, that went ahead and applied. They got approved for the loan, and within 10 days they have to take their first draw, and that 8-week clock starts ticking. Well, they're still under a stay-home order. They can't open the salon. The restaurant can't be opened to actual dine-in customers. So how are they going to hire back all their employees and spend 75% of the money on payroll? There's some challenges there. We've asked for flexibility from Treasury and SBA on that, and are continuing to work those issues. But I want to urge you and others, please continue to give us feedback of some of the on-the-ground challenges that y'all have had. We have been having almost daily phone calls with bankers. We did one just yesterday from across the state, getting additional feedback from them. We had a conference call with small business owners yesterday as well, getting feedback from them on the programs, and continuing to work on the lessons learned. The Treasury website, almost on a daily basis, is updating the guidance and the frequently asked questions based upon the feedback from people like you. So thank you very much. All right, let's see, Lane. Laura, thank you very much. Lisa, thanks. Jada. Broadband access has been a challenge for many families, especially those with kids in virtual learning. Are you working with the Public Service Commission on expanding access and affordability? Jada, great question. Number one, the CARES Act provides a total of about $500 million for different schools and education systems in Louisiana. That's everything from the LSU flagship type universities, as well as some of our local kindergartens. And so it does provide that some of the eligible use of funds is expanding access. You may have seen that just, I think it was last night, yesterday, that our superintendent here at EBR Schools, Warren Drake, has announced that he is working on trying to get computers or Chromebooks to all students in the public schools in EBR, which is really just extraordinary. So again, some of the funds, $500 million, $500 million given to the state of Louisiana under the CARES Act. Those funds can be used to help to connect students with their schools for virtual learning. In addition to that, there was additional money, and I apologize, I don't remember from memory how much was in there, but there was additional funds in there to expand broadband access in the legislation as well through some of our existing broadband programs. So to answer your question, yes, it's in law, and money is beginning to flow. So great question, Jada, because being a parent of 3 kids, I know that we can't just forgo school as much as maybe 1 or 2 of them would like for that to happen. We do need to make sure we adapt there and convert and transition to online learning, which is what we've been doing. Jada, I'll give you something else, and I know it does require internet access, but something we've been doing to supplement with our kids is doing Khan Academy, which has been great. The kids have been spending a lot of time on there to help to supplement some of their school learning. So check it out. Keith, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Phil, I hope you're doing well. I hope the animals are doing well. And thank you very much for your kind words and encouragement. And same to you as well. I hope you're staying well and healthy, and I hope that all of your animals are also. Marvin, where do we stand on being able to use the malaria drug? Marvin, there continue to be a number of pilot projects, including, I think they're doing a statewide one in, gosh, I can't remember, or maybe I apologize, I can't remember where they're doing, but they're doing a number of trials. Bottom line is, they want to make sure that the drug actually provides benefits. They want to make sure if you have different types of underlying conditions or comorbidities, that there aren't conflicts or adverse effects, and that way whenever they determine that it is helpful, they're able to also provide the right protocols, meaning here are the conditions or criteria under which people will benefit from this drug. So they're going through those clinical trials right now to determine the right protocols. And I want to be clear, not a medical doctor, and I have just run into a wall of my expertise there. But I do know that they are working to continue to develop the protocols and continue to provide access under the right conditions for some of the different therapies that are out there, including malaria drug. Deborah, I owe you a phone call. I know, it was just yesterday, so I am going to call you back. But let's see, at the level of unemployment benefits, what is being done to incentivize workers to go back to jobs in the near term? Yeah, it's a really good question. So let's run through this scenario. So you have a deal where you could be eligible for maybe $847 a week in unemployment benefits between the state benefit and the federal supplement, and you could potentially have that for maybe 25 weeks. I mean, it really is a very, very generous benefit. So if someone was laid off, maybe a restaurant worker, and they're getting that much money, and then the employer calls back and says, hey, ready to bring you back, we're opening up next week, that employee says, well, wait a minute, let me get this straight. I can stay home and make this much, or I can go work and make that much. Maybe I'm going to stay home. Here's the deal. Number one, we sent a letter to the U.S. Secretary of Labor asking him to make sure that the right protections were in place to make sure that you were not disincentivizing work or providing perverse incentives for people to not work. So they're working on improving those protocols right now. Number one, 4 things, I think. Number two, in the legislation, we did something called short-term compensation. So Deborah, here's the way it works. Let's say that you have an employee that you pay $3,000 a month right now, and you can't afford to pay them that much, but you also don't want to lose them, and you have some work for them to do. So you say, all right, here's the deal. I can't pay you $3,000 a month, but I can pay you $1,000 a month. You can keep your health care, you can keep retirement benefits, and you're staying on payroll. They then, if the state stands this program up, takes advantage of this federal funding, that employee can then go apply to Louisiana Workforce Commission for unemployment, but it's an incremental unemployment. So you're paying them $1,000 a month. They used to make $3,000. They can go and get an incremental amount. It's not going to make them whole, but they can get an additional assistance from Louisiana Workforce Commission. Again, it's federally funded, and that way you're not laying someone off. They're not losing their health care benefits or retirement accruing, and instead you're able to reduce payments that more represents what's going on in the state of our economy right now, and they're able to get some additional assistance. So that's the third thing. And then the fourth thing is there's something called a Form 77. Every week, an employee or a laid off person or someone who lost their job, they have to recertify each week that they're still laid off. There's something called a Form 77 that an employer can file that say, hey, I've offered Jane or John their job back. I should use non-J names, huh? I've offered them their job back, and in doing that, it would actually disqualify that former employee or potential employee for continuing to draw unemployment benefits. So look, bottom line is we all hope that the person just does the right thing, and if the job's offered back, then they go back. But there are some protective measures in place now, and there's some other ones that we're working on improving to make sure that we don't have any hiccups in getting our economy running again. So thanks for flagging that, and we're going to continue working on it. Marla, what happens if you stay home, get unemployment with your health insurance that you had with the company you worked for? What happens if you get unemployment? Oh, you're saying what happens with your health insurance if you get unemployment? So here's what happens: if you are fully laid off from your job, then or fired or let go or what have you, you would lose your employer health care coverage if you do not do what's called COBRA. And the COBRA is basically an extension of your existing employer-sponsored healthcare program. So you would be able to COBRA or extend your healthcare coverage from your employer under COBRA. Now, your premium could go up, But that is why, when I was responding to Deborah's question just before, Marla, that's why I talked about that short-term compensation plan and how that actually would be something that would actually be a better incentive or more helpful, because then people don't actually lose their health care coverage. They can continue it, and they can also get some supplemental funds from unemployment. So I think that's a better scenario. But again, you have the option to use COBRA coverage and allow that to continue providing you with health care. Let's see.
One more question.
We'll let him go for a little more. Okay.
Okay, Gail, my granddaughter is 25 and will finish nursing school this fall. She can't work because of school. Her mom claimed her income taxes and she did not get anything. Yeah, so Gail, those children that are 17 and older, or depending on where they were in the tax year, they are not eligible for the dependent payment of $500, but they could be, and this is going to have to be a negotiation between the parents and the children, they could be eligible for a $1,200 payment directly for themselves, but under that scenario, the parents cannot claim them as a dependent on their taxes. And so I made reference to this earlier, but I think just suffice to say that it is one of the imperfections in the CARES Act, but we could either get it perfect or we could move it quickly and get an 80 or 90% solution, and we did go with it quickly. Jim, hey, thanks, Jim, and he's thanking everybody for putting this on. So you bet, we got a team of folks here that are all socially distancing.
Two more questions.
Okay, I'm just going to go through a couple more questions here. I think we're running out of time. Let's see, Mona, a friend had his work hours cut from 34 to 12 hours per week, which should make him eligible for unemployment. He's afraid he'll be fired if he applies. Is there a protection for him? Let's see. You know, Mona, I got to tell you, I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to give you inaccurate information. That's Mona Miller to Latin. We're gonna take your name down and see if we can contact you directly and get more information. Let us do some research. I don't want to give you an inaccurate answer, so let us just dig up some research there and see if we can get you the right answer. I apologize, but I'm looking forward to learning more, so that way I'll get it right for the next person. Pat, are we worried about COBRA requirements with so many kids online? Oh, COBRA requirements, so many kids online. You know, I think that we certainly. Whoa, where'd you go? I think that we certainly have a lot of. I think we have a lot of adapting to do right now during this time. Whenever everything has pivoted or transitioned from us being physically present to us transitioning everything online, and I think that you're exactly right to wave a yellow flag in this case. And I think that really incumbent upon a lot of the parents and adults to step up and figure out how we can be helpful there in protecting the privacy and of our children when they're online. Very, very important issue for you to flag, and I do appreciate it. There are a lot of tools through different internet service providers and through different devices as well, where parents can actually monitor and restrict the content of their children online. So it's a good reminder, and thank you for bringing it up. Look, I know there's some more questions on here. We'll go in to this Facebook Live and look at those questions and see if we can provide some answers, but we are timed out here, so we're going to run out. I want to ask y'all, we're going to be doing a Facebook Live on Friday at noon, so we can continue having conversations there. If y'all would like, you can go to our Facebook page, and that is Congressman Garrett Graves. It's Congressman Garrett Graves, our Facebook page, or you can like us and you will get a reminder whenever that Facebook goes live, and you can join us there. But thanks again for the opportunity to join y'all. I know that this has been a weird transition for so many of us, but stay strong, stay healthy. We are very practiced at disasters, and all we have to do is adapt and stay resilient, as we've demonstrated we've been able to do in the past, and we will come out of this stronger. So thank y'all very much, and God bless. Have a good day.
I want to just take a moment to thank Congressman Graves. He has been extremely busy. I know, because I've been working with him on some of our issues. So he's really being a great champion for his district, but more importantly for the citizens, all the citizens of the state of Louisiana. So I really want to thank him for taking the time and being willing to segment some time out for us to be able to participate. We will be posting this on a YouTube channel, and we'll be sending you the email about that, so you'll be able to look at this again. You'll be able to share it with others, and we'll be back in touch as we move to our next virtual meeting. So with that, meeting adjourned.